They cropped me out of the family photo. It was the group picture taken after my younger sister Amanda's graduation ceremony at Fort Jackson, the day she officially became a commissioned officer, a milestone for the whole family. My mother, stepfather, grandparents, cousins, they were all there, smiling. I stood at the edge of the frame, still in uniform, hair tied back, boots shined to a mirror gloss. But when my mom posted the photo to Facebook that evening, I was gone, cropped clean out. No explanation, no message asking if I was okay seeing myself erased from a family memory. My name is Casey Monroe. I'm 34 years old, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army. I've served for 15 years, deployed twice to Afghanistan, completed a 13-month classified mission I still can't talk about. I've received the Meritorious Service Medal and a personal letter of commendation from the Secretary of Defense. But in my family's eyes, I'm still stubborn Casey, the older daughter who won't settle down, who keeps chasing this dangerous job no one understands. And that day, at Amanda's graduation, I was nothing more than a shadow, an extra body, someone who shouldn't have been in the frame at all. The party was held in the base dining hall. On the buffet table, cupcakes were frosted like tiny American flags. Amanda's portrait, blown up and framed, hung proudly over a white and red backdrop. Congratulations, Second Lieutenant Amanda Monroe, our family's pride. My mother wore a purple dress, bright red lipstick, and enough perfume to fill the room. She moved from table to table beaming. She's been brilliant since she was a baby, top of her class in training. Can you believe my little girl's an officer now? I stood in the corner, sipping water. A few young soldiers in Amanda's unit whispered nearby, "Who's the woman in uniform over there?" "Not sure. Probably some relative." "Wait, that's a lieutenant colonel. That's way up there." "Weird no one's introducing her." One of them muttered, "Heard that's Amanda's sister, but her mom doesn't really like her showing up." I turned away. Not because I was hurt. I felt worse, but because I didn't want Amanda to be caught in the middle. She had texted me weeks before. "Please come. I want people to see you." So I came. Clearly, they didn't want me seen. "Maybe you shouldn't stand next to her in the pictures." That's what my mother whispered as she gently pulled me aside just before the family photo. Her hands clutched the bouquet of flowers meant for Amanda. I asked, "Why not?" She stared at my uniform. Her lips tightened. "It's Amanda's day. She's the new lieutenant. Your little sister's stepping into a bright future. You've been in that army stuff long enough." "That army stuff is the United States military, Mom." She avoided my gaze. "You make people uncomfortable. They ask why you haven't quit yet, why you don't have a family, why you still wear the uniform everywhere." I half smiled. Maybe because I'm out there serving the country while everyone back home obsesses over Amanda's wedding colors. I didn't mean to sound cruel, but that was the first and last time I let myself snap. Mom gave a stiff nod and walked away. The group photo that went online had 9 people. Amanda stood center, beaming. Mom hugged her, waist. Stepdad held her hand. Grandparents and relatives filled in the frame. The far right, where I had stood, was gone, cropped completely. No glimpse of an olive drab sleeve, not even a boot tip. As if I never existed. Amanda messaged me at midnight. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know Mom would do that. I kept the original. I still have it." I replied, "It's okay, kid. Congrats, you deserve it." But I was lying. I wasn't okay. I left the party by 9 p.m. No one said goodbye. No one waved. No thank you note arrived at my apartment near Fort Bragg afterwards. Just silence. I drove through the night. Dashboard lights flickered softly across my lap. The case holding my medals rattled on the passenger seat whenever I hit a bump. I glanced at the rearview mirror. The woman staring back, exhausted, quiet, unbreakable, was the same girl who climbed out of her bedroom window at 18 to enlist because no one at home would drive her to the recruiting office. She had survived war zones, saved lives, lost her best friend to an ambush near the Helmand border. She had wept in barracks, thousands of miles away because she missed home, even when no one at home missed her. And now, she'd been erased from a family photo. I never needed their applause. I only wanted to be present. But if even that was too much to ask, then someone else would speak for me. And that someone was coming sooner than they expected. Because 3 days later, at Amanda's formal commissioning ceremony, a man no one would see coming, a man with the power to silence an entire room, would walk toward me and salute. I'll never forget the look on Amanda's face.
I was never chosen to stand in the center of family photos. I was 8 years old at a family picnic in Crater Lake Park. Mom called everyone together for a group photo. Amanda, my little sister, who was 4 years younger, was gently placed on the folding chair in the middle. Mom's arms wrapped proudly around her. I stood off to the left, nearly out of the frame. I still remember the slant of the afternoon sun on my arms, the smell of strawberries on my sleeves, and the way Mom said, "Casey, pull your skirt down. Your knees look awkward." Back then, I didn't understand why the corrections always came my way, but I got used to it. The feeling of being background noise in my own family. Amanda was always the family's sunshine, and I was the shadow no one wanted to talk about. She was smart, charming, voted class president, and got scholarships with ease. I was the girl who played softball, became team captain, but Mom only said, "Be careful, don't act so rough. Girls should be softer." I applied to West Point at 18, got rejected. So I enlisted instead. I told Mom the day I dropped off my paperwork, and she said just one thing. "Another one of your reckless ideas?" I left home on a Tuesday morning. No farewell breakfast. No good luck hugs. My backpack held 3 outfits. A worn hoodie from my high school team, a small notebook scribbled with training goals, and a photo I had cut out from a family album. My face was barely visible in it, but I kept it anyway. At basic training, I learned how to push pain aside. Drills that left your muscles screaming, sleeping in the cold, 3-minute meals. All of it felt lighter than the ache I carried from knowing I was never the child they'd brag about. But there, for the first time, I felt seen. Not for being a daughter, but for being a fighter, for enduring, for not quitting. Sergeant Alvarez, who ran our training, told me after our 3rd week, "Monroe, you're the kind of soldier I'd keep. Not 'cause you're strong, 'cause you're smart." I was chosen for comms, then I trained in intel, picked up new languages, got recruited to special operations by 25, deployed twice. Every time I came home on leave and called the house, Mom would say, "You doing okay? Amanda's finishing her thesis. She's thinking Air Force." Amanda never asked where I was, but I knew she watched. She knew what I was doing, and I believe deep down she loved me in her own way. But she chose the side that offered comfort, the one with praise. At every holiday dinner, I got seated with the single adults table. At every Thanksgiving, I was asked to clear the dishes while Amanda gave the welcome speech, even though I had just delivered a memorial address at a military base that made the front page of Stars and Stripes. It's not that my family hated me. They just didn't know how to accept that their eldest daughter had grown stronger than any of them could handle. I never needed worship, but a nod, a proud look, a hug that didn't end with, "Don't bring up your deployments." Maybe that would have let me breathe easier. Eventually, I realized that kind of approval was never coming. Not from them. But it would come from someone they respected more than anyone else. And that day, that exact moment, was drawing closer than any of them could imagine. 3 days later, the commissioning ceremony for new officers would be held at Fort Jackson. Amanda was on the list. I would be there too. Not because I was invited, but because something extraordinary was going to happen. One of the honored guests that morning would be Colonel Richard L. Morris, senior strategist, medal recipient, former commanding officer of Task Force Bravo, my old unit. He knew me, knew what I'd done, and most importantly, He respected me. My family didn't know this. No one did. And they were not ready for the silence that would sweep across that ceremony when the man they looked up to most would walk away from the podium and head straight towards me. There were nights I wondered if I was wrong for still craving validation from people who'd push me to the margins. But then I'd remind myself, I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for the girls who'd been told they were too much, for the daughters who sat outside the spotlight, for those who chose paths no one clapped for. I would walk into that hall, still in uniform, still at the edge, and I'd wait. Because at the exact right moment, when the room was applauding the shiny new officers, the most powerful man in that building would turn around and acknowledge me. I wonder how will they look at me when he salutes.
I don't know what my mother's face will look like when she sees Colonel Richard L. Morris halt in front of me and salute. But I know one thing. In that moment, every year I spent as their invisible daughter would finally expire. The commissioning ceremony began promptly at 0800. Fort Jackson's parade field was silent, except for the flapping of flags and the occasional hum of the PA system. 23 newly minted officers stood in formation. Their boots gleamed, their eyes locked forward. I sat in the third row on the left side of the bleachers. My uniform was pressed, clean, my silver oak leaf insignia catching the morning light. Some guests glanced sideways at me, unsure who I was. Clearly a high-ranking officer, yet no one had introduced me. Amanda was front and center, her second lieutenant bars proudly pinned. She looked beautiful, polished, exactly what a family success story should look like. Then came the moment. The guest of honor was being introduced. Everyone rose to their feet. Except me. Not out of disrespect, but because I'd been briefed, he wouldn't be walking in from the front, he'd be coming from behind. A single drum roll echoed across the field. Colonel Morris stepped onto the scene. He was tall, broad, his jacket shimmered with commendations. His walk was precise, carved from years of command. He passed the front rows, nodded at a few generals, and, without turning toward the stage, made a sharp left. Toward me. The man with enough authority to silence a crowd was walking straight toward the daughter they had once cropped out of the family photo. I stood. My boots tapped softly on the concrete. I brought my fingers to my brow in a crisp salute. But then he stopped. Right in front of me. No words, just a pause. Then Colonel Morris straightened his back and bowed his head. "Lieutenant Colonel Monroe," he announced, loud enough for the entire parade ground to hear. "It was my honor to serve alongside you during Operation Helmand, and it is an even greater honor to see you here today at a ceremony welcoming the next generation of leaders." Every whisper vanished. Across the field, my mother's head slowly turned. Amanda didn't move. Her entire body froze. I nodded back. My voice didn't shake, but my pulse pounded like a snare drum. "Thank you, sir. It was my honor, too." That wasn't applause. That wasn't some symbolic salute. It was a seismic shift. Because immediately people began murmuring. A young officer turned to a friend. "Who is she?" "A lieutenant colonel, probably special forces." "Wait, so technically she outranks all of us?" Colonel Morris returned to the platform, but the shadow he left behind lingered, and Amanda understood. After the ceremony, as the crowd shuffled toward the refreshments and cameras, my mother looked unsteady. She pulled me aside near a bench. "Since when do you know Colonel Morris?" "Since I was 27. He was my CO in Afghanistan." "Why didn't you tell me?" I smiled slightly. "You used to say, 'Don't bring up war stories at dinner,' remember?" She didn't respond, just smoothed the wrinkles of her dress. Her hands trembled a little. Amanda approached quietly. She didn't speak at first. She just hugged me. For the first time in 10 years, really hugged me, not the quick family hug, a real one, the kind that says, "I see you now." "I didn't know you'd done so much." I nodded. "You weren't supposed to. You just needed to live your path. That's enough." She looked up. "Do you think I'm strong enough for this?" I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thinking isn't enough. You have to prove it, the same way I did." I left the event early, didn't stay for the cake, didn't pose for pictures, didn't make a post about it. I didn't need that moment to go viral. Colonel Morris's salute was more than enough. I drove home in silence. In the side compartment of my car was a photo of Amanda as a toddler, the one I had kept since the day I left home. This time, I looked at it without bitterness, because she had seen me, finally, and so had the rest of the world. But there's still one question I can't answer. Will they truly change? Was that shift genuine or just shock? I don't know yet. But I know this much. I no longer need to be at the center of their picture, because from this point forward, I will be the center of my own frame.
I don't know what my mother's face will look like when she sees Colonel Richard L. Morris halt in front of me and salute. But I know one thing. In that moment, every year I spent as their invisible daughter would finally expire. The commissioning ceremony began promptly at 0800. Fort Jackson's parade field was silent, except for the flapping of flags and the occasional hum of the PA system. 23 newly minted officers stood in formation. Their boots gleamed, their eyes locked forward. I sat in the third row on the left side of the bleachers. My uniform was pressed, clean, my silver oak leaf insignia catching the morning light. Some guests glanced sideways at me, unsure who I was. Clearly a high-ranking officer, yet no one had introduced me. Amanda was front and center, her second lieutenant bars proudly pinned. She looked beautiful, polished, exactly what a family success story should look like. Then came the moment. The guest of honor was being introduced. Everyone rose to their feet. Except me. Not out of disrespect, but because I'd been briefed, he wouldn't be walking in from the front, he'd be coming from behind. A single drum roll echoed across the field. Colonel Morris stepped onto the scene. He was tall, broad, his jacket shimmered with commendations. His walk was precise, carved from years of command. He passed the front rows, nodded at a few generals, and, without turning toward the stage, made a sharp left. Toward me. The man with enough authority to silence a crowd was walking straight toward the daughter they had once cropped out of the family photo. I stood. My boots tapped softly on the concrete. I brought my fingers to my brow in a crisp salute. But then he stopped. Right in front of me. No words, just a pause. Then Colonel Morris straightened his back and bowed his head. "Lieutenant Colonel Monroe," he announced, loud enough for the entire parade ground to hear. "It was my honor to serve alongside you during Operation Helmand, and it is an even greater honor to see you here today at a ceremony welcoming the next generation of leaders." Every whisper vanished. Across the field, my mother's head slowly turned. Amanda didn't move. Her entire body froze. I nodded back. My voice didn't shake, but my pulse pounded like a snare drum. "Thank you, sir. It was my honor, too." That wasn't applause. That wasn't some symbolic salute. It was a seismic shift. Because immediately people began murmuring. A young officer turned to a friend. "Who is she?" "A lieutenant colonel, probably special forces." "Wait, so technically she outranks all of us?" Colonel Morris returned to the platform, but the shadow he left behind lingered, and Amanda understood.
After the ceremony, as the crowd shuffled toward the refreshments and cameras, my mother looked unsteady. She pulled me aside near a bench. "Since when do you know Colonel Morris?" "Since I was 27. He was my CO in Afghanistan." "Why didn't you tell me?" I smiled slightly. "You used to say, 'Don't bring up war stories at dinner,' remember?" She didn't respond, just smoothed the wrinkles of her dress. Her hands trembled a little. Amanda approached quietly. She didn't speak at first. She just hugged me. For the first time in 10 years, really hugged me, not the quick family hug, a real one, the kind that says, "I see you now." "I didn't know you'd done so much." I nodded. "You weren't supposed to. You just needed to live your path. That's enough." She looked up. "Do you think I'm strong enough for this?" I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thinking isn't enough. You have to prove it, the same way I did." I left the event early, didn't stay for the cake, didn't pose for pictures, didn't make a post about it. I didn't need that moment to go viral. Colonel Morris's salute was more than enough. I drove home in silence. In the side compartment of my car was a photo of Amanda as a toddler, the one I had kept since the day I left home. This time, I looked at it without bitterness, because she had seen me, finally, and so had the rest of the world. But there's still one question I can't answer. Will they truly change? Was that shift genuine or just shock? I don't know yet. But I know this much. I no longer need to be at the center of their picture, because from this point forward, I will be the center of my own frame.
My sister was receiving her gold bars, while I was already wearing silver oak leaves. It's strange, the way rank becomes visible only when it threatens someone's pride. Amanda was glowing, surrounded by officers in full dress uniforms. Her ceremony photo, polished and proud, would no doubt be framed above the fireplace in our mother's home. Meanwhile, I, who outranked every single officer on that stage, was asked to stand with the extended family. The irony? I wasn't extended. I was Amanda's only sibling, the same person who once packed her school lunches, who walked her to kindergarten, who taught her how to ride a bike without training wheels. But that part of the story was always quiet. The parts where I bled, fought, earned my place. Those didn't make for cute captions. To them, Amanda was stepping into a future. They didn't realize I'd already walked through fire to build mine. After the ceremony, a line of junior officers approached Amanda to congratulate her. I stood at a distance, sipping lukewarm coffee from a paper cup, when one of them broke away from the crowd and walked toward me. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say, that salute earlier, that was something." He was young, nervous. His hands fidgeted at his sides. I nodded. "It was something, yeah." He hesitated. "Was it true? You served with Colonel Morris?" I looked him in the eye. "I still do." That shut him up for a beat. Then he straightened, saluted me, and I returned it. That night, I went to the base's officers' lounge, not to celebrate, but to exhale. A few familiar faces nodded my way. Old colleagues, one or two whispered, "Didn't know you were Amanda's sister." I got that a lot. Because the truth is, our family always made sure no one knew. Mom would say, "Better not mention Casey too much. People might think Amanda has something to prove." As if I were the embarrassment, not the example. Quote, "People think invisibility hurts because you're forgotten. But the truth is, being deliberately erased, that's what cuts deepest." I once came home from deployment early, surprise leave. Amanda was hosting a college graduation dinner. I showed up at the restaurant unannounced. Mom pulled me aside at the door and said, "Maybe just stop by for dessert. You in uniform will distract the guests." I stood there, boots dusty from travel, hands still shaking from the plane ride, and nodded. Then I walked away, Didn't even get a slice of cake. Amanda texted me the next morning. Didn't know you were coming. Sorry about last night. I told her it was fine. But of course, it wasn't. Now, here we were again. But this time, the audience had seen me. The curtain had been pulled back. There was no pretending anymore. And that shift was unsettling. The family didn't know how to treat me now. Too much respect would feel forced. Too little would feel cruel. So instead, they defaulted to silence. Amanda was the only one who tried. She pulled me aside after the ceremony, hands still shaking from adrenaline. "Do you think I'll be okay?" I paused. "Are you asking if you're capable or if you'll be accepted?" She bit her lip. "Both," I exhaled. "The second one, you can't control. The first one, that's on you." She looked away. "I used to think you were cold." "I know, but I get it now. Why you built walls." I shook my head. "Not walls, armor." And that was the difference. Later that week, Amanda called me. Not texted. Called. That alone was a shift. We talked for nearly an hour about her new assignment, her fears, her excitement. She asked about mine too. For once, she asked more than she answered, and that to me felt bigger than any salute. But deep down, I knew what was coming. The moment Amanda's shine would dim in our mother's eyes, because mine was starting to reflect too brightly. When I showed up to Amanda's post-ceremony dinner, heads turned. Not because I was loud, but because people had heard. They'd seen the clip, read the comments, understood the weight of a salute from a man like Morris, and that made me a threat to the family narrative. Mom smiled at me, yes, but the smile didn't touch her eyes, because control, once cracked, doesn't come back easy. Amanda was still the golden child, but now people knew the gold was plated, and the steel underneath was mine.
The room fell silent. Not because I spoke, but because they realized I didn't need to. After Amanda's commissioning ceremony, after the dinner, after the Facebook posts, things changed. Not overnight, but like a fault line that had been quiet too long, suddenly shifting under their feet. Family dynamics work like an unspoken script. Every person has their role. I was the reliable background character, the one who never complained, who always sent a gift but never expected one, who wasn't invited to weddings, only receptions, who wasn't asked how I was, only what base I was currently deployed to. But now the audience had seen the script tear, and everyone was scrambling to rewrite their lines. The next Sunday, I got a call from my Uncle Mark. I hadn't heard from him in years. "Hey, kiddo, just saw the video. Damn, you've been busy, huh?" I kept it short. "Yeah, busy decade." He chuckled. "Your mom never said you were a lieutenant colonel. Wow, that's impressive." I didn't ask why he was calling now. He already knew I knew. At first, Mom tried to pretend nothing had changed. She sent me the usual texts, holiday reminders, photos of Amanda volunteering, updates on Aunt Bev's knee surgery. No mention of the salute or the dinner or the fact that half her Facebook friends now followed me on LinkedIn. But I saw the shift, the way she corrected herself mid-sentence on the phone. Amanda's the first officer in the family. Well, no, second, I guess. Casey too. The way she added a tag to a photo, proud of both my daughters. It was so new, it was almost tender. Almost. But acknowledgement doesn't always mean apology, and forgiveness doesn't always need an invitation. I'd spent years wishing she'd just say one sentence. "I'm sorry we made you feel like you didn't belong." She never did, so I let it go. Not for her. For me. Because peace, I realized, isn't always about repairing the story. Sometimes it's about stepping out of it and writing your own. A month later, Amanda called again. She had a new tone in her voice, lighter, more grounded. "I talked to Mom. About you." I waited. She said she didn't know you'd done so much, that she never understood the weight you carried. I didn't say anything. She continued,
I told her that wasn't your job to make her understand. It was ours. That was the closest thing to justice I'd ever received. Not public, not loud, but clear, solid, like the weight of boots on dry ground after too long in the air. And then came the moment that made everything worth it. The U.S. Army published a short profile about my career as part of a Women in Command feature. They highlighted my work with counterintelligence, my language training, my leadership in remote deployments. It wasn't viral, but it was official and undeniable. That week, Amanda shared it to her Facebook with one sentence. "This is my sister. She's the reason I wear this uniform today." I read it twice, 3 times, and then sat down. I cried. Not because I needed her validation, but because she gave it freely, without obligation, without prompting. Because she finally saw me not as a rival, but as a root. I haven't spoken much about that day, the day Colonel Morris saluted me, but I think about it often. Not because of the attention, but because of what it represented. A simple gesture that unraveled a lifetime of silence. A nod between warriors that said, "You don't have to prove anything anymore." Sometimes I wonder, what if he hadn't been there? What if no one ever said anything? Would I still be carrying the weight of invisibility? Or would I have eventually laid it down anyway? Maybe I'll never know. But here's what I do know. Recognition is sweet, but self-worth is quieter, and it lasts longer. I still wear the uniform. Not for them, not for the family photo I was cropped out of. I wear it for the girl who carried her own duffel bag at 18, who didn't cry when her name was left off the invite list, who showed up anyway, and who stood straight-backed when the world finally turned its head. Because the salute wasn't the beginning of her story, it was the proof that she had already lived it well.
They say every family has a turning point. Mine came in the shape of a salute. Months had passed since that morning at Fort Jackson. The Facebook buzz faded. The video clip that had briefly made its rounds among military families was buried beneath new stories, new ceremonies, new distractions. But something remained. The silence. Not the kind I used to know. The silence of being ignored, overlooked, left out. This silence was different. It was the kind that follows a reckoning. My mother didn't say much in the weeks after Amanda posted that photo. She sent me a care package on Veterans Day. It had cookies, lotion, a handwritten card that said, "Stay safe. I know we don't say it enough, but we're proud of you. Love, Mom." The words were uneven, tentative, like she wasn't sure how they'd be received. Still, I kept the card. Not because I needed it, but because the younger version of me once did. Amanda and I talked more now. Not every day, but enough. She told me about her first field assignment, about the soldier who froze during a training exercise, and how she stepped in to lead. She asked me if she'd done the right thing. I smiled. You didn't wait for permission. You acted. That's leadership. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I learned that from you. It was the first time she'd said it out loud. I didn't go back for Christmas that year. I wasn't asked. Not directly. Amanda invited me, said she'd love to have me there. But Mom never followed up. So I made other plans. I booked a cabin up north near the Smoky Mountains. Just me, a fire, a worn paperback, and a flask of whiskey I had been saving since my last deployment. And that was enough. Because I wasn't hiding, I wasn't retreating, I was choosing myself. Then came the letter. Handwritten, mailed, no return address, but I knew the handwriting. Amanda. Casey. I just wanted to say thank you. Not for what you did at Fort Jackson, but for everything before it. For letting me believe I was strong, even when you were the one holding the weight.
for showing me what grace looks like when no one's watching. I hope to become half the soldier you are, half the woman, too. Love, Amanda. That letter broke something in me and then rebuilt it. I didn't cry right away, but later that night, sitting under the stars with snow dusting the porch, I read it again and again. And the next morning, I wrote back, "You don't have to become me. Become the version of yourself that never waits for permission. That's more than enough." They say revenge is best served cold, but I've learned that dignity, quietly lived, burns hotter than any fury. I could have lashed out. I could have called them out. Every exclusion, every moment of silence, every table I wasn't invited to. But I didn't, because my life had never been about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. Amanda is doing well now. Her unit respects her. She's learning the same lessons I did, but she gets to learn them from a place of visibility, not invisibility. And if I had even the smallest part in making that possible, then everything, the distance, the silence, the erasure, was worth it. Last month, I was invited to speak at a leadership summit for women in uniform. They asked me what advice I would give to younger officers who feel unseen. I told them this: don't fight to be seen. Live in a way that makes being overlooked impossible. The room went quiet. Not because I said something grand, but because I spoke a truth too many of them recognized. And when I stepped off that stage, 2 young cadets approached me with tears in their eyes and said, "We thought we were alone." I told them, "You never were. We're just taught to whisper instead of roar." And now when I look at that old family photo, the one I was cropped out of, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel clarity. Because that empty space where I used to be, that's the space I needed to walk out of their frame and into my own. Some people wait a lifetime to be recognized. Others realize they never needed permission to take up space in the first place. I'm not the story they tell at Sunday dinner, but I'm the chapter Amanda's daughters will grow up reading, and that, to me, is the only legacy worth fighting for. If you've ever been the one cut from the photo, left off the list, uninvited to the table, just remember, they didn't erase you. They just gave you the quiet you needed to rise.